Media Services and your moderator for today. With the growing spread of the highly transmissible Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus, COVID infection rates, hospitalizations, and deaths are once again rising in the United States in what the CDC calls a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Here in California, fewer than half of the eligible Latinos and African Americans have gotten vaccinated, putting them at increasing risk. The good news is that Latinos and Blacks account for a larger share of vaccinations in recent weeks compared to their share of the total population. But narrowing the racial gaps in vaccination rates is an urgent priority in protecting the nation's health, according to the CDC. That's why today's briefing focuses on the innovative approaches 3 community organizers have developed to reach unvaccinated Latinos in densely urban as well as suburban and rural parts of the state. They all share one thing in common. They are members of the communities they seek to engage. They draw on their personal knowledge of those communities more than they do on social media messaging to break through the isolation, distrust, misinformation, and fear that keeps people from getting vaccines. Their stories of success and lessons learned need to be amplified by all of us working in the field of communications in the race to beat the virus through vaccines. We are grateful to the California Department of Aging for sponsoring this ethnic media initiative on vaccinating the hardest to reach Californians. Our first CDA briefing on June 8th focused on people over 65. Future briefings will focus on stories from the front lines in reaching African Americans and other groups with low vaccine rates, including people with disabilities. Today, thanks to the CDA, we are providing an interpreter in American Sign Language, or ASL, which you can find next to me here in the spotlight. So Kim McCoy-Wade, Director of the California Department of Aging, will provide opening remarks for today's briefing. We will then hear from our 3 presenters, Irma Muñoz, Executive Director of Mujeres de la Tierra, a pioneer in community engagement in Los Angeles, Jorge Pingarron, who works with Todos Unidos in Stockton, and Esperanza Velma, Executive Director of Environmental Justice Coalition for Water, a statewide coalition of grassroots groups working on vaccine outreach in the San Joaquin Valley. All 3 received support from their vaccine work from a grant from the Governor's Operations Office administered by UCLA. Reporters should enter your questions in the chat box. We will take questions after each speaker and, if time allows, at the conclusion of the panel. I will most likely read the questions today because of time. After the briefing, we will send the video of today's briefing, expanded biographies of the speakers, and relevant collateral. We begin welcoming Director Kim McCoy-Wade for remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thanks to all of you for being really a bright spot in what is, again, unfortunately, dark clouds in our fight against the pandemic here in California. On behalf of Governor Newsom, I want to thank you so much. I don't have to tell this group that older adults have been the disproportionate number of deaths, particularly among Latinos. And Latinos have been a disproportionate number of cases, and especially with older adults. So we have this gap in reaching older Latino and Latinas, the Latinx community, that the people on this call are closing. And here we are today to build on that momentum and really close it. So I want to thank you. We've learned a few things in these months now of trying to get vaccines out. One is that the messenger is so important. And that's why we're grateful for all of you in the ethnic media who are here as trusted messengers of truth, pushing back on disinformation and connecting people with the news they need, in this case, to save lives. And we also know that we are learning what works from the people who are doing the work. And we are so, so blessed to have these 3 leaders from the 3 corners of California to share with us what is working, how we can support them in their critical work. And I'll just say, you know, one of the things we know in working with older adults, that you always begin by asking older adults, what matters to you? What matters to you? Is it your family? Is it your health? Are you worried about your money, about your spirit? How can we meet you where you are? And so I'm so delighted to be here today and hear from the true experts to learn what matters to the older adults you're working to serve. How can we help you at the state? And how, as our governor says, can we truly be a California for all ages, have a California comeback, but first and foremost, save lives. So thank you. I look forward to hearing the conversation and learning and continuing all the good work.
Thank you to Mrs. McCoy-Wade, Director of the California Department of Aging. So let's move on to our three speakers today. Is Irma on? Okay, I don't see her. So I think I'm gonna go to the person who was our maybe she's having some trouble with the Zoom. Okay, let's see. I'm going to invite Jorge Pingarron of Todos Unidos, who coordinates canvassing in low-income neighborhoods of Stockton, where he's had to come to terms with things like white supremacists, dogs guarding homes, and other barriers to getting to people there in the area. Jorge, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, all. My name is Jorge Pingarron, and I am working in Stockton doing Todos Unidos GOTV campaign, Get Out the Vaccine. We have actually completed 7,500 hours of canvassing out on the field, and we've encountered many things along the way. To name a few, we have extreme heat to begin with. So canvassers are still out there, still trying to do the job. We've had some ozone issues with California fires up north, which have also prevented some days of canvassing. We have encountered racism. We have encountered physical altercations. We have encountered harassment. Overall, we have gone above and beyond to deal with all of these issues and situations, and still continue our effort to try to get this city vaccinated. It's very hard. It's productive in a sense to us because we're doing the right thing, but it's very hard because of all the beliefs out there, and a lot of people still don't want to get vaccinated. A lot of people still don't believe in COVID. A lot of people are, just anti-government. We come across an issue of people making it political instead of a need, for humanity here, and just for the fact that one government was lost and another government takes over just because of their side. They go against the vaccine. So a lot of different things, anti-vaxxers, COVID existence, making it political, anti-government people. Overall, a lot of the education comes when we do personal encounters with the people, and each conversation that we have is just a different story. It's from all aspects of life. A lot of underserved communities, and I can tell you, some numbers that we have put together, and the numbers alone are going to let you know exactly how hard this situation is, because our efforts in doing this, knocking on 80,000 houses or doors. 30% of that is conversations that we can have, and only 1% of that is actual vaccine signups. So that's how hard it becomes, and a lack of education, a lack of government information. If they could provide more things or more literature in the languages needed for us to cover these grounds is also another thing. So, I mean, basically, it's a very hard combination of things, but we're still out there. We're still trying to progress, and we're still hitting the ground running here, and we're just trying to keep going, keep strolling, keep moving along, keep helping the community, and there's other scenarios that we are implementing now to help this process, but it's been a hard campaign to do, and nonetheless, we're very proud of what we have done, and that's how it is.
Jorge, can you talk a little bit about what works? What has worked for you? We know that it's hard, but you've gotten some success. So please talk to us about what people respond to, because there's been a lot of anger directed at unvaccinated people, as you know. I just saw a new Facebook, one of those frames that you put on your profile, and it's essentially an insult against vaccinated people. That's unlikely to work, as other people have indicated. What works in your experience?
What works is the personal talk. I think you knocking on somebody's door is going to bring out a different execution, or you're going to go, you don't know what route you're going to take with that person. But what does work is making that personal conversation, and the part of the education to that is not going to take a certain route right away, but a lot of the things that they can ask you, you're going to have to learn how to turn it around. You got to learn how to answer properly, and how to kind of get into their situation on a personal level, and try to convince them in that sense to be able to turn it around, and to be able to convince them to get the vaccination. That's I think that's what the door knocking and the personal conversation is what works the best. I mean, you have other programs out there, and phone banking is another one, but on the phone banking situation is a little bit harder, because people just get annoying phone calls all the time, including, not to mention any names, but hotel brands and whatnot. And they're just used to just, not recognizing a phone number and hanging up immediately. But once you're there, they see you in your uniform. They see you got the get out the vaccine logo on there, and the organization you represent with ID badges. It's a little bit easier to talk to them, and to try to make conversation and convince them to be able to get the vaccine, even though you'll encounter different situations, but that's the best way.
When we talked before, you talked about, and you mentioned today, racism, and also people knocking on doors being attacked, and you having to resort to calling the sheriff or the police. Tell us a little bit about those instances, and how do you deal with that?
Well, it's hard to deal with. It is, it's definitely something hard to deal with. It's something that stands the hair up on your back, and it makes you not being present. It makes you it makes me sad, that the people that are helping us do this and go through this and try to help this situation about COVID to get thrown under and controlled. It hurts to see some people still going about the racial way, and it's gotten to the point where physical altercations. We had an instance where we were canvassing down in Modesto, I believe, 95358 zip code. That's a lot of rural area over there. You see a lot of American flags on the households. And canvassers were walking around, and what happened was they were encountered by a group of people that were following them. Then they kind of closed the way for them so that they couldn't continue to walk. Put the cars in front of them, jumped out of the cars, and they said they need to get out of here. You're not welcome here. From there, we proceeded to say, well, we're not doing anything wrong. We're trying to help, the county here. We're trying to help, get back to normal and suppress this COVID. And they still didn't want to listen. So when they were handed some literature, these guys that confronted, they threw it back at my canvassers, or at our canvassers, and hit them in the face with it. So we proceeded to call the sheriff. And the sheriff showed up, and it was the same story. It was we want to press charges. The sheriff said, well, you're going to have to take this to civil court. So in that case, I said, since when is assault a civil matter? But the sheriff gave us a case number. He filled out a report, which was just his name with the case number, right, and everything else was blank.
Well, George, what is the main reason?
Precisely what we went through there.
What is the main reason people tell you? I mean, I know you mentioned several reasons, but what is the main reason people do not want to get vaccinated? Is it the political thing, or is it something else? Is it fear of some kind?
I think the main reason, to answer your question directly, is when people are making it a political thing. I think that would be the main thing. Other than that, you have the regular, don't believe in vaccine guys, the guys that believe that there's not enough research done on the vaccine. But those are secondary to the main thing, which is, I think, more the political situation.
All right. Okay, George, stay put. We have more questions in the chat, but we need to let our second speaker go in, who was supposed to be first, but we had a little bit of a technical problem. So I'm going to go to Irma Muñoz of Mujeres de la Tierra, who will speak about her nonprofit's outreach efforts in Macarthur Park, which serves people of all ages and ethnicities, including members of 3 local gangs, and is surrounded by predominantly low-income Latino neighborhoods of Los Angeles. Gracias, Irma. Bienvenida. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody, and thank you for including me on this very important conversation to save lives. Let me give you an overview of Macarthur Park. Macarthur Park is almost 100% Latino immigrant, mostly from Central America, Guatemaltecos, and some Mexicanos and others. Most immigrants arrive to Macarthur Park when they first land in California. They come because in their countries, Macarthur Park is known as the place to start, where they can get a false ID and start getting to know people and start getting to understand what's going on. To date, we have made 2,267 appointments. We have had 63,700 conversations, one-on-one conversations. We have invested over 4,700 canvassing hours. And I do want to let you know that we have been very successful. We've had our challenges. The reasons we've been successful is because we really know the community intimately. We did an assessment study before we started. We had already been working on another project. And the folks that we hire to, which they refer them to canvassers, but I like calling them outreach workers, many of them are from the community. So employment is the big issue there. And so when you hire people from the area in which you're doing work, they know a lot of folks, they know the terrain, they can guide you. It's not learning something from the first time. So as a matter of fact, I met with the team leaders yesterday, and each of them are assigned between 4 and 6 individuals that they manage, and they really liked it. They feel that they're inspiring folks. One day, I think we got 126 appointments. The average for most groups is about between 5 and 20. And we learned a lot of lessons because I think it's very important when you do this work with people that you pay attention to what you can learn. Some of the challenges that we've had is the community is fearful of providing personal information due to immigration status. As I told you, a lot of folks are not documented. So anybody that is asking questions, especially you want to get the vaccine, initially you had to provide an ID. So nobody wants to provide their ID because they think the next thing's going to happen is INS or the immigration is going to be knocking on their doors to take them away. It's a working class neighborhood, and most people were not available for appointments Monday through Saturday. They were available for appointments on Sunday, but unfortunately, there were no places that were giving vaccinations on Sundays until recently with Supervisor Hilda Solis. Our next big issue is the very strong religious community that's present in the park. They're all against COVID-19. And so when we talk to folks for their parishioners or their followers, they say, their church leaders say, don't vaccinate, it would be a sin. They're actually injecting poison. There's a tremendous distrust of government and authority. So we originally were told to say, hello, my name is Irma Munoz, I'm with the Department of Public Health. We scratch that completely. We say, soy Irma Munoz, soy de Mujeres de la Tierra, and we mostly listen, but everybody who works on our team has received both vaccinations. And some of the folks that received both vaccinations resisted it. So they tell their personal stories of why they resisted and why they decided to get the vaccine. And so we've been quite successful in convincing people, but there are still in many places folks who don't want to get vaccinated for a number of reasons, religious, political, and being found out by the migra and putting them and their families in risk. Our successes have been because we have casual conversations with people. We don't open up the conversation, well, we're here to talk to you about getting a vaccine. Everybody introduces themselves, but we don't just do door to door. As a matter of fact, maybe 20% of our work is door to door, because we found that people now during COVID are not answering the doors in Macarthur Park. If someone's knocking on your door, it's because you know a cousin or family member is coming. But if someone's knocking your door, it's never good news to open it because you don't know who's going to be on the other side. And many of the people are living in high-rise apartments, so it's even difficult to even get into those apartment buildings. And so when you do, if you're not expected, they're not going to open the door to you. What we have done mostly is we do what's called crowd canvassing. We go into areas where people, we find people. We don't expect the people to come to us, some members of the public. We go to bus stops, the metro station, mercados, where the vendors are. There's a big vendor population there, both permitted and unpermitted. And we even got most of the vendors vaccinated. We go into stores, tienditas, anywhere, panaderias, anywhere we can find people. We actually go in the park a lot because there's a lot of activity. The park, as was mentioned, does have 3 very active gangs there. But what's happened is that people know us, and so everybody kind of stays in their own lane. There's a large unhoused population. We try to get them vaccinated as well. There's a big soccer playing presence with both mostly youth and children. And that gives us the opportunity to talk to the parents to get them vaccinated. Now we've had more success because now they're having vaccine sites on Sundays, which is when most people are free and people are coming to get them. And it's word of mouth. We encourage folks that we talk to your tios, talk to your neighbors, talk to your other family members, your church members to get vaccinated because I got vaccinated and I'm okay. So it is fear. It's fear of the unknown. So what we try to do is take fear out of people's hearts and put facts in their head. And many times it takes a while to do that. And sometimes they leave, our folks leave phone numbers just in case they change their mind, and they've gotten several calls saying, you know what, I thought about what you said. Can you come back and answer a couple more questions? And so it is really fascinating. Our approach is, our methodology is using a relevant cultural lens. We don't just give the same spiel to everybody. we really take into consideration their background, their language, their struggles. A lot of people are struggling day to day, and you have to acknowledge that. So these conversations that we've had have become very effective because the women who are having these, most of the people who work for us happen to be women and happen to live in Macarthur Park. And so they have guided us. And, you know, in meeting with them yesterday, they said, this is hard work, but we are saving lives and we're doing this de todo corazón. This is important to us and we wouldn't do it any other way. Irma, are we going to get another contract so we can continue this work? Although they acknowledge how hard it is, they understand the value of what they're doing.
Irma, thank you so much. We have some questions coming in, but let me ask you this. Talk to me about reaching elders in that community. How do you reach them? What is their vaccination status? And what happens when you convince the elder in a family to vaccinate?
That's a very interesting question, because if you can get the elder, you got the whole family, because they're the ones who, whether it's the abuelita, el abuelito, el papacito, whomever, if the decision maker in the family says yes, then it's okay for everybody else to get vaccinated. We work with senior groups, Spanish-speaking senior groups. We've been working with a Korean monolingual Spanish, Korean-speaking group, where there we talk to the leaders. And I think that they have a lot more experience, that they're interested in facts and details and information. And you take your time talking to them, and more important, to listen to them. And sometimes instead of a 5-minute conversation, it goes into a 20-minute conversation, because we know if we get them, we're going to get the whole family. So I would encourage you to always ask for el papá, la mamá, because in that area, many of the grandparents live with, as a matter of fact, in most households, you have 2 and 3 families living together. So you not only get the one family, you hopefully get all the family members involved.
And also, I think you've been having, we've been having some issue regarding minors who are not near their parents are not around. Maybe some of them are undocumented, unaccompanied refugee minors who don't have parents to sign papers for them to accept the vaccine. Talk to us about that.
Yes, the minors that we have spoken to are all from Guatemala. They're around 16 years old. And because they don't have a parent or a guardian with them, because they come here to escape what's going on in their country and to make a living and to help out and send money back home to their parents. We have notified a number of folks, but because they don't have a parent or a guardian, they can't get vaccinated, and they want to be vaccinated. They understand the importance of being vaccinated, and they tell their friends they want to be vaccinated. So we're kind of stuck right now, and we're hoping that whoever is listening can help us resolve this issue. I mean, here, there are many folks who don't want to be vaccinated, and here we have young people at the age of 16 who have a lot of friends and people they hang out with that they also would get vaccinated. But this is a very serious problem, because there are a lot of young people that live in Macarthur Park, and they're losing out. And so if anybody out there can help us resolve this issue, it would be deeply appreciated, not just from Macarthur Park, but many other areas where you encounter young people from various countries who are here without a parent or a guardian.
Yeah, definitely. When you look at this issue up close, you see so many other things that you didn't know about. How did you work, or how are you working through the 3 gangs that work or operate in the park?
Well, I've worked with other gang members when I was in San Diego and Barrio Logan and Chicano Park. What I know about them, as long as you stay in your lane and you don't do what they're doing or you get in the way, you're okay. And we've stayed in our lane. As a matter of fact, one of our members was earlier this week in Koreatown, a Latino young man, probably around 18 years old, because we have very young people working with us, all ages. and a member of MS-13 approached him and said, "Get out of here, I'm a gang member and we want you to leave." And he left. No one's here to be a hero. That's the only encounter that we've had. The ones in the park know that we're there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk to the person who's leading this program and asking them if we might be able to connect with the gang members, because they too need to be vaccinated. So I don't believe in shying away and running away and pretending they don't exist. They're a member and have a presence in Macarthur Park, and I don't necessarily care for that, but there's nothing I'm going to do about it. But while they're there, let's get them vaccinated and we stick to our lane. And one of our issues for me personally is I want to make sure that everybody who's out in the field is safe, avoids any kinds of issues. I will tell you that we have had somebody pull a gun on one of our canvassers. They left immediately. No harm came to that person, thank God. And that was at one of the door-to-door connections. And so we give everybody extra training on being safe. It's not worth your life to get someone to agree to a vaccination if it's very clear that they're not going to want it and they're upset about it. So we proceed with extra caution.
Irma, there's a question in the chat from Jorge Macias. Do you have any numbers as to how many people in your area you've talked to and how many have you been able to get vaccinated?
Yes, just give me a second here. We have made 2,000 almost 2,300 appointments for people to get vaccinated. We've had 63,700 conversations with people. So you can see that there are a lot of people still very much resisting getting the vaccine. And we have dedicated 4,700 canvassing hours with a team of 25 individuals. And 95% of our conversations are in Spanish. So those are numbers. And there's sometimes when we first started out, we're getting a total of 25 appointments that we made. And now we're the highest I think we've gotten lately is 126, 96. So we're doing a lot better. I think that people are talking to one another about, I got the vaccine and I kind of didn't want to because I didn't know what was going to happen. So a lot of this is the word of mouth. That's why it's important when we have these conversations to encourage them. When you get the vaccine, tell your neighbors, tell your uncles, tell your family, tell the rest of your children, because I think it's very important. The word of mouth is much more powerful than anything else in the Latino community.
Okay, and before we move on to our next speaker, Irma, what's your advice for reaching unvaccinated Latinos statewide?
This virus has killed thousands of people, regardless of their economic status, regardless of what religion they believe in, regardless of their immigration status. It does not discriminate. And this new variant is highly contagious. And I think unfortunately, when people take this seriously is when they know someone who's been in the hospital or unfortunately has died from the virus. And so we have women who are very good listeners. And sometimes people are telling you, oh, I don't think so, not now. But they're able to start a conversation to plant seeds of the importance of what's going on. And since we've been there, we have raised 4 percentage points of more people vaccinated. We hope to be higher because you want to make sure you're succeeding. And so we have to change our script based on what's happening. Our script now is that kids are getting the Delta variant, and that we need to get vaccinated for the good of their children. As you know, marrying parents, but in particular Latino parents, all is for their children so they can go to college and they can better their lives through their children. And so, when you talk about their children, they give you a different kind of attention because you've hit them home in their heart. Like, oh my God, I thought children couldn't get this. And then when you give them the figures of how many have died and how many are getting the Delta variant, they start rethinking all of this and how quickly it's being spread. So I think that being real, a script is only good for 10 seconds. And then you have to really be a human being and talk one-on-one and look at the person and make it clear that you're there because you care about them, that it's important because you're trying to save their lives and the lives of the community. And that's what the women told me yesterday, that when it's very hot, because it's been in the 90s and probably in the hundreds in other parts of the state, people still go out in that heat because they understand what they're doing. They're saving lives. And what better work can someone have is the mission to provide information so that people feel comfortable in getting vaccinated so their lives are saved. And so I was very inspired by the women that I met with yesterday. And they've even gone to the point where they drive people who don't have cars when it wasn't in Macarthur Park and take them to the clinics where they do have it. See, that's how committed they are. That's not part of the job, but they take their time to do that. Because as far as they're concerned, every person counts. And the more they can get, they're better. And so I think we've just begun, frankly. We have learned a lot of lessons. And every lesson and challenge that we have, we try to resolve it somehow. And the idea of having people from the community doing this work really has given us a great advantage on our results, because you're providing jobs that people need, and you're providing it with people who are knowledgeable and are well recognized and known in the neighborhood. It's not like I start from scratch. So we got to get to know people. We have to develop trust, because that takes a long time to do. Developing trust with someone is not something that happens in 5 minutes or even 5 days. It is the way you approach them, how your body is. If you're going into someone's house and you're looking around to see what they got, well, people are going to say gracias a Dios. But if you're looking in them straight in the eye and you shake their hands with both of your hands and you are soft-spoken and your eyes look like you really care and your heart sings out that I'm here because I want to help you, that makes all the difference in the world.
Wow. Okay, Irma, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was. We're going to move on to our third speaker, and please stay around for more questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Our third speaker is Esperanza Bielma, founder of Environmental Justice Coalition for Water, which coordinates grassroots outreach efforts, including in rural communities of the San Joaquin Valley. Thank you, Esperanza. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Again, I want to just make a real quick correction. I serve as the executive director for the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water. However, I am not the founder. So just to make sure that we correct that, and we want to acknowledge who our predecessors are. So I'm here from the city of Stockton, California, and we've also been working on the campaign diligently. Stockton is the 7th largest city in the county of San Joaquin, and we primarily, in terms of the areas that we've been serving, are from the disadvantaged communities. The Environmental Justice Coalition for Water is very familiar with the lay of the land, being that we are an all women of color run organization, both by board and by employees. And so we are very familiar with the areas that we're serving. We have been working in the area, grew up in this area, and so therefore we understand the demographic, the community leaders and members, and primarily in terms of our area, we do have a large Hispanic population, so we do have bilingual speakers that we have as our promotoras, our canvassers, and we have a demographic also of Southeast Asian communities that we also serve. So we were assigned in terms of this outreach to do work in 3 zip codes, and we were just given an additional zip code. So we have a total of 4 zip codes in the area. One is in the Stanislaus County area that we're serving, and as a result, we are in our 9th week of canvassing with the Get Out the Vaccine campaign. And we have a total of doors knocked in total with all the groups here in the area in terms of Stockton. There's been 184,650 doors knocked. Of those, EJCW has knocked 52,102. And Todos Unidos, our partner organization, has knocked 80,556. Of those conversations in terms of the actual vaccine signups, we have 700, that is the total amount. Of those total amount for our area in Stockton, there's been 174 that are EJCW and 329 that are Todos Unidos. And conversations, we've had 28,336 conversations, and 21,420 was EJCW. 70,000 total conversations have been had in this area. So this is, again, our 9th week. So we hope to amp up those numbers in the next couple of weeks. And, just like our partners have been doing. So we also have been doing crowd canvassing. We've been going to community centers. One of the community centers that we pushed a lot of folks to, the Stribley Community Center. That Stribley Community Center was at about 30, 40 vaccines per day. Once we had our canvassers out in that area code, then we pushed it up to 80 to 100 vaccines per day. And again, we had a lot of folks going out into the Mexican markets, the Asian markets in the area, and doing the crowd canvassing and then pushing them forward, as well as going door to door knocking. Although the weather here is sometimes 100 degrees, we adapt accordingly. We go out in the morning instead of the afternoon, and we do some phone banking, but we rely on that personal touch in terms of going, door to door and speaking to people individually. We go to the flea markets, we go to all the mass locations of folks. And this is the reason that we're able to then increase the saturation rate for our zip codes. And because we're familiar with the communities, because we're from the communities, we have, as far as our canvassers are concerned, a cross-pollination of age groups. So, we have from young people to senior moms that are out canvassing. So we have, they're able to relate directly with the folks, the residents. And so that's, I think, one of the successes that we have in being able to reach our demographic. And so then these are the numbers that we have thus far. Like I said, we're going to be increasing the saturation rate. We're going to continue to do the work that we're doing. But one of the things that, speaking of with regards to the environmental component, we have the California wildfires, and then we have that air pollution, the PM 2.5 that comes due to the heat combination with the wildfires. And then, so then you add the COVID component of that, and that makes for a very dangerous and unhealthy situation. So we don't send our canvassers out during that time, and we do the phone banking, but the residents themselves are then facing that like triple effect, and especially in our lower income communities, because they're sometimes unaware of the dangers they're facing when you have the California wildfires taking place. And in our valley, it's all captured together because it's all, it's a valley, so it's all settles into our valley. So what I think that we need to do is to be able to amplify the message and work in correlation with the Air Pollution Control District, the county, the state, and be able to amplify our message in that manner, because we'll be able to do it in our various languages, and then being able to give the message to our residents so that we have the component of getting vaccinated to decrease the potential hazard of the actual COVID and Delta variant, because of the fact that it's amplified by our unhealthy air that we have many times in the valley, besides the California wildfires. So I think that if we're able to collaborate with the air districts and the school districts, with the county and the state, and then do, amplify a message, especially you were talking about earlier with the kids, vaccination, vaccinate yourself for the kids, like follow this message, push that along throughout the state, because of the fact that the kids are going back to school now. And you have the people that are not vaccinated, and the correlation between those not vaccinated that are then infecting the children, and then the children go to school, and then there are other children who are of age that can't be vaccinated, and then those numbers are increasing. So then how is it that we're going to get the message across to all of those parents in the various languages? It has to continue to be the in-person communication. However, we do need to collaborate with all of our different agencies so that we're giving out the same message and we're getting people to get vaccinated, because that's going to be the only solution. And they're very hard to reach areas sometimes that we have also that are rural. So we have our residential areas, our urban areas, which I think that we can do this in. However, our rural areas are going to be a challenge. And like I said, so there's also, in terms of a study that we participated in last summer, which was the correlation of COVID and heat in the Central Valley with farm workers from UC Berkeley with Professor Castillo. And so we're going to continue that study with UC Berkeley with Professor Castillo, but that's like, obviously one of the issues that's taking place.
Esperanza, what are the biggest challenges in doing this outreach in rural areas? And is social media effective there at all?
Well, social media is very limited in the rural areas. Stockton is one of the larger cities also along the Delta region. So those communities that are in those rural areas sometimes do not have the same type of access to the internet and to social media. So I believe, I don't know what the study would be based on the percentage of outreach done on social media, but you still have to do the in-person. One of the challenges is because of the fact that the homes are so separate from one another, and because you have, homes that are set back, a ways from the road, it's going to be difficult to reach them in person. That's one of the things that we've seen. We're very, very familiar with rural areas. EJCW has served and worked in primarily rural areas. So there has to be a combination thereof. However, the grant that we have doesn't really allow for a lot of monies in terms of publications, so that you can do the drops at the different locations when you go through the rural areas to get the word across, because you have to go back to that old-fashioned flyer type of drop to get to the rural areas, because that's one of the challenges. Because if you don't have them on social media, how is it that you're going to get them? We do go to the locations if there's a store or what have you in the area, then we're able to do outreach there in terms of mass canvassing, but many times there aren't. They're very far away from the residential homes. So it's in terms of the lay of the land, being able to get the information out to them in that manner.
Because we've Irma mentioned, and you mentioned women. I think Irma mentioned women, having women work, but a large number, I think majority of those being infected and hospitalized are men. I want to ask George, is it important to have men doing this work? And do you have, other mentors?
I believe it's important to have both doing this work. Maybe I don't know why those stats, or I don't know where they came from, but if the majority, like you say, the majority of men getting infected, maybe maybe men are higher risk, to be out there and do a lot of outside work. Maybe I don't know. I have no clue on that statistic, but I believe we both need to do the work. I think we both can touch both sides of the coin on male and female. And then between males and females, we can touch the side of the coin that doesn't exist, which is the children, which are very important. So I believe that it takes all of us. I think in mentioning it takes all of us. I think it should be a united communities that do this together. Overall, it's not a specific community. One here or one there, or there's no intent on separating humanity here. This is a benefit for all of us.
Absolutely. Okay, so there are more questions in the chat, but I want to bring in Leo Briones. If you want to say a few words about this, you help us put together this event. Thank you so much. And all right, just a few words.
Okay, well, a couple things that I wanted to say. Just one on the issue of social media and it's more like a general comment of social media and outreaching to people through, that medium. I don't think it works very well at all, because I think the political situation right now is like you have half the people who are believing disinformation on social media. You have the other half of people who are skeptical that there is disinformation. So, knocking on somebody's door in the intimacy. The one thing that we found across there's 3 different programs here or 4 different programs that I've worked on is education, education, education. And then there's different elements of how that happens. And I also want to point out that this vaccination effort really started with the elderly. And the elderly were very receptive. They were like, I don't want to get this. I want to live the rest of my life as long as, as long as possible. And one of the things we found as a common thread, for people's information, is that people are more apt to be open to getting vaccinated if their grandparents have been vaccinated. And then it kind of skips that middle generation. And then if the kids have been vaccinated or they're interested in it, those are the 2 sort of influencers. But anyway, but the one point I want to make quickly is that this process, and what I mean by this process is sort of the door-to-door, knocking on people's doors, providing them with education and information very intimately, is that this may be revolutionary in terms of how the state is going to deal with the distribution of social services. Secretary Yolanda Richardson is just really, really interested in thinking about how every social service is going to be more efficient and cheaper to do, because people are actually, using it, those social services, if in fact these type of programs with grassroots, with community-based organizations are the people that are out there, providing the outreach. There's a lot of money that's spent on PR, on television, radio, social media. I'm not saying that doesn't make any difference, but it's really, if anybody knows anything about it, it's kind of like any social services from mental health to, like, for instance, the PPP, all these PPP programs, there's a lot of them and people aren't using them. So the next phase of this particular operation will be to knock on people's doors and tell them, hey, you can get healthcare for $1 a month. There's a program if you're eligible. You don't have to pay your rent. Here's the rent relief program we have, etc. So all of these PPP programs that people haven't been utilizing are now going to be, we're in a model here to try to get that out, and we'll see how effective that is. But this might be something that California institutionalizes, which I think is in a broad picture very interesting.
Thank you, Leo.
you.
Briefly, I want to go to the three speakers to do a very, very short, not too long, to answer this question. What can we do? What can ethnic media do to support your efforts and to help our communities through this, increase their participation in these vaccination programs? Irma, do you have any thoughts on that? And unmute yourself, please.
Yes, thank you for the question, Pilar. I think if you write stories showcasing individuals who were very reluctant to be vaccinated in those high areas that have low vaccination rates, would really be helpful. Like what changed your mind, or why were you so concerned, and why were you so worried, and why did you decide to finally do it? Because when you showcase people that look like the folks that are hesitant to do it, that look like them, that speak the same language, that live in their same neighborhood, I think that would be very, very helpful. There are many places, there are very few stories on the rich, diverse communities that we have in many parts of the state. And usually it's burglaries that they've been, arrests that have happened, but this is so critical. I just think sharing real life stories would be really important to do that in both English and Spanish media, and maybe even have a Zoom roundtable with some of these individuals, because people like to hear from their neighbors, the everyday person, or get some of these folks that have been knocking on doors, who can really tell you the true gritty stories of what's happening. The last thing I do want to mention is that one of the challenges that we've had is that there's very little or no existent information in indigenous language like Quiche and others. And we're missing out a whole set of communities in the Macarthur Park area, as well as other parts of the state.
Thank you. Thank you, Irma. George, any words to the media about what we can do?
Yes, ma'am. I think giving the proper message is number one, and the proper message is to unite the communities. The proper message is to give the right adequate information about getting the vaccine, how important it is, how you prevent death, how you prevent extreme sickness, with it, and gather numbers, and gather overall numbers, and see what, it's a lot more pro to get the vaccine than it is to not get it, because when it came out, the whole situation was about nobody trusted what was in the vaccine, and what it was made of. But with the number of vaccinations given nowadays, I think it's safe to say that it's okay to get it, and it's okay to prevent death, and it's okay to prevent extreme sickness, and that's what we need, and that's what we need for the future generations, right? I don't put it behind us that this might be kind of like a flu shot every year. It's going to turn out that way because of all the variants, but I think ethnic media can help by broadcasting the proper message and uniting all these communities together, and making us all work for the same thing.
Thank you, George. Esperanza, quickly, please. You need to unmute.
Okay, so in terms of supporting the efforts that we have is to, again, amplify the message, and then educating our communities in the various languages, and the education from the experts that can, in terms of the myths that are out there, making sure that they understand, what the positive is in terms of taking the vaccine versus the negative. And so I think amplifying that message over and over, and the component that has to do with the kids in terms of how important it is to get vaccinated for our kids, whether it's for your own kids, your nieces, your nephews, your grandkids. I think doing that component, and then maybe besides our everyday folks, if the different folks from our known celebrities or folks like that can be persons whom can be interviewed that they can also relate to on that level will also amplify the message, because then they are seeing that the folks that they see on an everyday basis in terms of like on the screen, what have you, that was one of the thought process that we talked about as well.
Thank you so much. And I want to bring in California Department of Aging Director Kim McCoy-Wade for a final remark, and then we'll be done.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story and getting the message. That's what we have to do. We have to share the story of elders who have been vaccinated to save their lives, their grandchildren's lives, their communities' lives, and get that word out there. There's no better stories from the heart, as so many of you said, looking people in the eye, sharing that personal story. Questions have been answered. Safety has been proven. We can bring it to your house, but it's time to share those stories of success and saving lives. And thank you to all of you who are doing that and will continue to do that.
Thank you, everyone.